another day in my workshop. I've got a lot of different jobs today that are quite interesting. First of all, I am doing services on 3 violins. So it is cleaning and polishing, planing the fingerboard, sometimes new bridges or sound post, new strings, servicing the pegs, and just getting everything working really beautifully. I already planed the fingerboards, so right now the first job I'll be doing is lowering the nut, and it's totally nuts because I'm lowering 5 nuts all in one go. But dividing up my work that way is actually very handy. The phone's ringing. Hang on. Hello, Olaf Grawert speaking. All right, bye. Anyway, you didn't need to listen to the whole call. Some things should stay private. Anyway, yeah, so this morning Coralie isn't helping me, so I also have to answer the phone calls. Anyway, before I start, first of all, of course, I've got to grab a drink of coffee. So I've got to turn my glue on. I like to keep the glue on throughout the day. All right, let me get back into the things I'm doing today. So I am doing services. Very exciting. I'm working on the neck of my new violin, which is kind of the last thing I have to do before the very final sort of fine finish. And then I can prime and varnish the instrument, and I'm really excited about it. It's looking really wonderful. It's actually starting to look like a violin. It's taken way too long. Like, it's taken me probably 3 or 4 months longer than I'd hoped. And that's just because I'm busy with other work. I'm also setting up a beautiful Hoffmeister violin, and I'm setting up a Salvatore Lombardi violin as well. The fingerboards are planed. We did that yesterday. I actually taught my son to plane fingerboards yesterday. It was his first one, and he's already helped me sanding fingerboards, so he's good at that, but he's still learning the process of planing a fingerboard. The first one was a little bit rough. Like, he did well, but you know, it's just kind of learning the tools. And I said, you know, you'll get good once you've done your first 100. It's a bit hard to hear for a 17-year-old. Anyway, I am also working on another neck of another instrument. This is a beautiful French violin that I have. And the neck was way too thin on this violin. It must have been thinned down at some point. And people do that. Like, when you have a player with really small hands, you can actually thin down the neck for a player to make it easier to play. But it's a non-reversible repair. So I actually had to do a neck graft. So I grafted on a new neck. And then I've got a little bit of work to do on a cello, and I've got some bow repairs to do. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get all of that done today. That's a pretty big ask, but I'll do my best to get as far as possible with it. I've got clients tomorrow, so I want to make sure I get fairly far with these repairs. Anyway, I'll get into work. Now, I know where most of you are. It's actually summer. But here it's winter, and we've had something called a cold snap, which means it only gets up to 21 degrees Celsius during the day, which I find freezing. But I know you'll probably laugh at me because where you're watching from, it's probably a little bit colder in winter, unless, you know, you're from some of the warmer regions. So first of all, I have to lower all the nuts that I'm working on. Okay, so that's the right height now. So now I have to get the string spacing right. Okay, that's good. So now to cutting the grooves. Now to filing the grooves. And now I'm just going to sand everything to make it look really good. Okay, so now just refiling just a tiny bit just to get these grooves absolutely perfect and the right height. Putting some pencil in the grooves. So that's gonna make it nice and easy to play for the player. Still got to do a bridge for this violin. That's one of my Hoffmeisters that I'm setting up. And now I've got to do the other 4 nuts. I have to do exactly the same thing. So I don't think you have to see that again. So I'll come back when I'm done with the last one. Okay, so that's the last one. That took me a while. That's this one here is a beautiful Emile Laurent violin from the 1920s. It's absolutely stunning. Look at that lovely one-piece back. He worked in Brussels and he was a very good violin maker. So I'm optimizing that violin at the moment. The fingerboard had a downward bow to it, which meant that it was really buzzy. Like, it's a beautiful instrument, but it was really buzzy. Yesterday I also made a bridge for it. So today I'll get the strings on and we'll get to have a listen. While I was doing that, there was a knock on the door and something really exciting happened. My delivery of wood from the valley where Stradivarius got his wood from arrived. So that's super exciting. So I'm gonna go and have a look. I'm way too excited. I couldn't put down my violin, so I had to keep going while she was doing the delivery, but I'm gonna have a look. Oh my god, this is so exciting. This is for a really exciting project that I'm doing to bring some really amazing violins to my clients. So if you're looking for a beautiful violin made from wood that's sourced from the same place Stradivarius sourced his wood, keep watching my channel and you'll see. Okay, let's have a look. That's just one piece. It's got nice grain. Let's have a little listen. That is going to sound amazing. I'm so excited. I'm going to look at all the other timber a little bit later. That's so exciting. I've been waiting for this timber for a while. It's just gorgeous. Alright, so next step, I am going to put the strings on the Emile Laurent violin, but my back's been a bit tight lately, so I'm going to do a very quick stretch called the Founder just to relax my back a bit and strengthen it as well. It's so good. That's better. I haven't been cycling. I just hurt my back a little bit. I know it'll get better. Getting treatment for it is alright. Now it's time to put strings on this violin. So the previous bridge for this violin was super rudimentary. You can see the maker didn't really have any carving skills. Also the string heights were all wrong. So yeah, so I made a beautiful bridge that's gonna make a big difference to the sound. All the string heights are right. Like I said, the fingerboard had an upward curve, which meant that every string, everywhere you put your fingers, had a slight buzz to the sound, which would be horrendous. You know, I don't know how he managed, but it's amazing. You know, there are still so many people out there that don't know the basics of setting up an instrument, and it's the players that suffer. So look, if you're a violin maker and watching, get the basic measurements right. You know, you can get that Strobel book of violin measurements. It's, you know, it's super cheap. I use it sometimes. You know, the measurements are all good. Yeah. It's called Useful Measurements for Violin Makers. Now, I adjust the measurements a little bit depending on the player. So players with very small hands, I will actually do lower string actions. I sometimes have the strings slightly closer together. For players with larger hands, you know, I might put the strings a little bit further apart. I've got players, like especially some soloists that I work with, actually have higher string heights than normal, and they like it that way. It's not a lot, doesn't happen a lot. For me, what I think is if the string heights are a little bit lower, it'll take less force, so less strength to press down the string fully. And if it takes less strength to press down the string fully, you can play faster, and I mean that's really important as a soloist. So Emile Laurent was born in the late 1850s. He learned in Mirecourt, which is the big violin making center in France, close to the border of Germany, and his violins are just a classic example of French violin making, late 1800s, early 1900s. Absolutely beautiful, really neat work, stunning varnish. Probably maybe not quite as transparent as some of the Cremonese makers, but it's a hard-wearing varnish. The young player that owns this wasn't able to get the violin polished this time, just for financial reasons. You know, like studying at university and playing an instrument can be very hard. Like living expenses here in Australia have been insane. It's really sad, especially for young people. It just frustrates me so much. So he's getting the work done that's going to make the violin sound the best and be the easiest to play, which is fingerboard, grid, sound post, and just getting all those things right. And then later this year he's going to come back for a proper French polish. I did put some varnish on the hand patch here just to make sure that he doesn't actually do any damage to the instrument. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing it. French instruments often have that slightly deeper sound. Emile was well known for having a workshop in Brussels, in Belgium, but his later instruments are labeled Bordeaux, so he looks like he moved there later. Let's have a look at this sound post. Oh yeah. Yeah, we have one violin shop in Brisbane that does the strangest sound post adjustments. It's kind of scary because they've actually done damage to really nice instruments. Just by angling the sound post way too far, and actually it digs its way into the top plate and can cause actual damage to the inside of the top plate. This is an old German violin, and you can actually see a mark. I think the sound post is a little bit tight. I'll just have it play and see. I'm going to make this sound post a tiny bit shorter. I'm not quite happy with it. It's sitting in there a bit too tight. Actually, it's a terrible sound post, and I'm going to fully replace it. It's really, really soft wood. So I'm going to use the length of this sound post as a starting point because it's a bit too long, and then I'll be able to make it a tiny bit shorter. This is how I get my sound posts, by the way, in great big lengths. And this is the highest grade of sound post. Really nice fine grain. Sometimes when they arrive, even the highest grade don't have that fine grain, and I have to relegate them to a B grade for cheaper instruments. But this one here is beautiful. And sometimes the B grade ones arrive and they're actually really good quality. Just going to pop this into the violin. Wow, that's actually incredibly close to fit. Okay, that is good. I'm happy with that. Just gotta line it up a tiny bit. Oh, that's good. He's gonna love that. Now, it's a really beautiful violin. I'm really looking forward to doing the actual polish later in the year. That's gonna make his instrument look phenomenal as well. Yeah, very exciting. I'm just going to do a tiny polish on the hand patch because the varnish I put there is just a little bit rough. So I'm just going to sand over it. There we go. And then I will polish over it as well. I'm doing this as a freebie because I don't want his instrument to get damaged any further. And you know, like I said, it's a bit hard budget wise for younger people sometimes to maintain their instruments, but he's going to love it. It's going to make such a big difference. He plays in the youth orchestra. We've got an amazing youth orchestra in Queensland. The quality of the playing is, you know, they really sound like a professional orchestra a lot of the times. Just amazing. It's getting a bit warm now. I love our Queensland climate. I'm going to go for a bit of a walk a bit later, and it's just stunning out. It's just a crystal blue sky. You know, it's cold by our standards, but it'll be like 21 degrees or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of a cleanup of my workbench and then I'll get into some polishing. I have 2 violins that are here for a clean and polish, so I've already cleaned them. So I'll do some polishing. I also added some varnish to the hand patch, so that's good. But I just want to clean up my bench a little bit. And thanks for the comment that someone made the other day to clean up my bench. I know. It's just how I am. Stuff just seems to accumulate when you do work, especially when you're trying to get a lot of work done fairly quickly. Sometimes gets a bit chaotic. I'm going to do the only good thing I can with this soundpost, and that's to chuck it in the bin. It's a dissonance post. Alright, let's see. Polishing time. Alright, I did some work on the hand patch of this one, so I'm going to sand the varnish. I use 1000 grade sandpaper. It's very fine, so be very careful when you sand the varnish on instruments because you don't want to sand it away. That's all good. I'll do the sanding on the other violin as well because then I can polish both at the same time. It's a smart thing to bunch your work. Like if you do each job separately on one violin, you have to get all the tools ready and things like that. So it's a smart idea to bunch your work a little bit. Polishing cloth, method, polishing varnish, paraffin oil. There's literally just a very neutral oil to help it slide. Wow, that's already... It's amazing how quickly it starts looking so much better when you polish. This is a Hammer & Co. instrument. Walter Hammer is a really well-known German violin maker. He wrote a number of books. They're based in Stuttgart, in the sort of south of Germany. And he was a very knowledgeable guy. I think my dad may have actually met him too at some point. Don't think he'd be alive anymore. So the Hammer family basically were active in Stuttgart since the 1860s. Went through 3 generations, and then Walter Hammer was the last of the family, and when he retired in 1982, that's when that finished. But this instrument was probably by his father or uncle who worked together. A beautifully made instrument, Stradivarius copy, very clearly a Stradivarius copy. It's had a bit of work done on the top plate. You can kind of see that. But yeah, it's a lovely violin. It's owned by a well-known violin teacher here in our area. She works with kids of all ages, and I think her mum may have given it to her, something along those lines. Now I'm polishing. As you can see, I'm keeping the cloth moving at all times. It's got methylated spirits on it, and methylated spirits will dissolve the varnish. So if I was to stop the cloth, like if I stopped moving, there would be a really strong pressure mark, and this cloth will actually stick to the varnish, leaving a horrendous mark. So it takes years of skill to really get good at polishing violins this way and with this kind of method. There are other methods. Some of the really old instruments, well-known Italian instruments that have extremely fragile varnish. You only need to look at the varnish and it comes off. They use a type of wax polish that adds a very thin coat of wax, and that's like a preservation polish that's used by museums. The great thing about wax is that it stops oxygen from getting to a surface, and oxygen and oxidization is one of the biggest destroyers of everything, actually. They use this microcrystalline polish which was developed for museums. It's a London-based company to preserve old instruments. And then the other thing that destroys instruments, apart from oxidization, of course, is perspiration and playing, like bumps and nicks and things like that. You saw my last video on the accident that happened where the conductor flicked the violin out of the soloist's hand. Yes, not ideal. So that can also cause a bit of damage, but not so much to the varnish, more to the whole instrument. So this is the other violin I'm also polishing. It's quite a different violin, not as valuable as the other two I'm working on, but still means a lot to the player, and that's what's important. You know, an instrument becomes so much a part of a player because, you know, it's kind of your voice, it's the way you express yourself. And you imagine owning an instrument that someone like an old family member or something like that express themselves through. It has so much value because, you know, it meant so much to the player. That's why I really understand instruments being passed down through families, the kind of value they have and they gain. And sometimes even the violin maker, I mean, you know, you guys enjoy watching my videos. And like, to me, it's really important that people get to play good quality, beautiful instruments. So I've developed these beautiful instruments and I put my finishing touches and everything on there. Like, I set them up to a way that they're super easy to play. Also make sure that my makers do a very good job. Like, I don't let them get away with anything. A bit annoying really for them, but not so annoying for you. So, you know, I like making sure that players get access to really nice instruments, no matter what value. So this afternoon I should be able to get some work done on my own violin, which is very exciting. I'm trying a new varnish. It's going to be more hardy than the Italian varnishes, but I think it'll look just as rich and beautiful. You want to get that combination. You want to protect the instrument. You want a player to be able to play the instrument without wearing off the varnish. Last week I worked on 3 modern instruments with really soft varnish that just, you know, melts away as you're playing it. And then if there's a little bit of like skin, perspiration, anything, it sticks to the instrument, like dirt sticks to the instrument. It mixes with the perspiration and the varnish to create this horrible like mixture that all I can do is kind of take it off, but it takes off some of the varnish at the same time. So my goal is to actually have a soft enough varnish to have a beautiful tone, but hard enough varnish to protect the instrument from playing. People say, oh, that wonderful Italian varnish. That didn't do it, you know. It wore off very easily. If you look at any of those old instruments, if they'd been played any number of years, the varnish just wore off and they were being played in a colder climate. You know, people say Stradivarius' secret. I don't think there was much of a secret. I pretty much think that he went to his local chemist and went, you know, when Giuseppe, can you make me some varnish? And Giuseppe, oh here, this is our latest, finest varnish. We got the ingredients from the Middle East and oh, it's incredible. That's my Giuseppe impersonation. Look, Giuseppe, the chemist from the 1700s, if you reincarnate and hear me and get upset, just write me an email or leave a comment. Anyway, so I don't actually think Stradivarius knew exactly what all the ingredients were, but they've done a lot of research now, and with, I think it's called infrared spectrometer or something like that, was used to analyze Stradivarius's varnish, and it's very simple. It is just boiled linseed oil with colophony or resin. So resin, linseed oil, very simple. But linseed oil is a very soft oil, and so they could have also used walnut oil, but they're very soft oils, and rosin, you know what rosin's like. It's, you know, you can actually wash it off fairly easily. And then, you know, getting that ratio right. If you put way too much rosin on, it'll go super hard and brittle. If you put too little rosin on, the varnish won't dry and it'll be too soft and wear off with fingers. And that's what a lot of people have done. So I'm trying to create a varnish that isn't too soft and still protects the instrument. And it has to look beautiful. What's really important to me is it's very transparent, so you can really look inside the instrument. If you have a look at the back, so this back is cut on the slab and it's absolutely stunning. It's going to come alive as a varnish. It's just amazing. I don't know if I'll be able to film the process, but I might. So I'm very excited to try it, and hopefully it won't be a big failure and I'll throw the instrument in the bin. No, I won't. It'll just mean washing off the varnish and starting again. But I think I've done some samples on pieces of timber and it's just beautiful. Look, okay, so you can kind of see, there you go, you can see how beautifully reflective the varnish is. So I think it's going to be absolutely stunning. And this is literally one coat. I've done nothing. I don't think even I've properly prepped the wood. So I'm actually really excited about this stuff. Okay, now it's lunchtime and I'm going to go for a walk. I haven't been cycling for a bit because of my lower back. Just strengthening it at the moment and doing other things. Cycling, because I'm already sitting down all the time, cycling isn't great. So I'm going to go for a nice walk. It's a beautiful day out there, so it'll be really enjoyable. And as always, it'll be followed by lunch. Very important. It's so beautiful out here. Good coffee. Iced coffee this time. Cold brew. Just looking in a second-hand shop. Okay, I'm back from lunch. While we're out on lunch, a client from Asia arrived unannounced and rang us and said, I just want to come and try instruments. Clearly says on our website that we are only by appointment, and people tend to wait, you know, weeks, sometimes months for appointments. But this person's going back home, so I'm gonna let her try some instruments. But I just quickly got to optimize, make sure everything's working. All right, I've just optimized the sound post. This is my Pierre Lamont. Yeah, that's nice. This one's really beautiful, has a really beautiful back. So I'm going to show her this violin and a couple of other ones. So anyway, I had a nice lunch. We went for a good walk. I love looking at pretty houses, so you'll notice quite a few pretty houses in the video. Anyway, back to polishing. This definitely would have dried now, so I can do another round of polishing. You can see a bit of wearing just here as well, and it's from people holding the violin down here. It actually damages the varnish, so if you're really smart, if you want to look after your instrument, just hold it by the neck. You'll notice, like, especially soloists who play very expensive Italian instruments, most of them hold their instruments by the neck and just down here. My polish has such a magical smell. I quite often get people commenting how beautiful my shop smells when I'm polishing. And funnily enough, the other day I was having lunch with my niece and I literally just polished up a violin really briefly, and she commented on being able to smell it on me. Who needs perfume, hey? Alright, now the other one, you don't have to see that. Alright, so I have to put the strings on my client's violin, so I'm going to do the pegs first. They're a long way in, these pegs, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a problem with the rosewood pegs. The timber is a little bit softer, so after a while they kind of go in a long way. So it's always important when you're fitting rosewood pegs, I always have to fit them with a little bit of extra space, maybe 2 millimeters or so, because they wind their way in. Putting new strings on this violin as well, which is always nice, and part of what I do is in the service is to put some grease on it. Actually, it's working very well, but put a great bit of grease on there. Well, I hope I get to work on my violin today. There's a lot I still have to finish. That's not my violin, unfortunately. Okay, now I've just got to put on the chin rest. It's a bit of an unusual one. It's the Dolphinos, which is a bit difficult to put on. Yeah, it's quite an unusual little system. So you kind of tighten it in like this first, and then you tighten it in from the side. But you know, it works for this player. And what's good about this system is that it actually attaches on the instrument around the top block. So, you know, I guess it doesn't put any extra strain on the rest of the instrument. Now the chin rest goes back on. Hopefully I'll get the height right. Probably should have measured it before I took it off, but we'll see. You can always readjust. Okay, fantastic. I will leave this hanging up here. I might do a tiny bit of a polish up last minute. Now, the next violin, I'll basically just show you. I'm going to do a tiny bit of work on it. This is a violin that was made by my Scottish friend and colleague Neil Oates. He passed away a few years ago. This violin was made in 2006, and very beautiful work. Like, we worked together in Germany, in Bremen in Germany, and he was an amazing restorer and maker, and really fun guy to be around. I really enjoyed working with him. Yeah, he set up his own workshop in Scotland, and unfortunately passed away, I think before he was even 50. So it's so nice that this violin's actually come to me. The owner actually bought the violin off the maker. He lives in Australia, he's teaching in Australia. We've got a slight problem with the sound, so there's a few modifications I'm going to do to, firstly, I'm gonna do an optimal bridge and sound post. Even though this is Neil's original bridge, I can see that, like, acoustically I'll be able to make some improvements to the sound. And then also some of the varnish, because of the style of varnish, I talked about that. Actually, I talked about modern violin makers and and what Varnish that wears. He did a lot of the wearing, like artificial wearing on here, but it kind of leaves the timber totally exposed here. So I want to put some varnish just to protect the instrument, so just to make sure that it has a chance to get to ripe old age of 200, 300, 400 years. If it was left like this, especially in the Australian climate with perspiration, it would literally destroy the instrument. So but I'm really grateful and honored to have one of his instruments here, because he was a good friend. We hung out quite a bit while I was in Germany. I didn't actually get to see him much more after that. This is many years ago. This is 1990 that I was over in Germany, so many years ago. But yeah, I'm looking forward to really optimizing this violin, give the player a fantastic chance to getting to playing. But it's a very unique violin. He really had his unique style, and I like it. Anyway, yeah, I've just taken the strings off, and the chin rest, so I can work on it. I won't be doing any more work than that today, but I just wanted to show you so you could see, it's always good to see the work of other makers. So next I'm going to do a bridge for my Georg Hoffmeister violin. I've also developed a new line of instrument called the Georg Hoffmeister Master, which uses much better tone woods and prettier fittings and everything. It's quite a bit more expensive, but it's absolutely stunning.
Or anytime you'd like on the ABC Listen app.
Yep, that's sharp. You don't just want to be able to shave the hairs, you want the hair to actually be jumping off, like it's almost like you can cut the hairs in the middle. That's the kind of sharpness I like, because it just makes for much neater work. Okay, so here's the beautiful Hoffmeister violin that I'm doing a bridge for. And it's definitely one of my bridges now. That's it. It's done. Now I have to put the strings on the Hoffmeister violin, which I will still do today. I've actually got someone trying it tomorrow. She's a fan, so that's great. I love it when people watch my channel and then come in and kind of, I get to meet them, they get to meet me. And I love being part of the journey of the players as they choose their instruments, and then when they come back they tell me how they're going, and yeah, it's beautiful. Obviously I've got a lot of fans from all over the world, and I've got people buying instruments from all over the world. We're literally talking, I think I've got just about every continent covered, except for, I don't know if I sold any instruments to Africa. Some countries you got to be a bit careful too, because parcels don't necessarily arrive unless you bribe some people or they bribe you. I don't know how it all works. It's not a world I've grown up in. I've always tried to be as honorable as possible, but not everyone. I'm just gonna do the final bit of setting up for the Georg Hoffmeister violin that I'm really excited about, because it is such a beautiful instrument. I've just recently sold one to a young girl. She's 11 or 12. And it's just her. She's very quiet. The Hoffmeister's got this beautiful deep rich tone, and it just sounds like her. And her teacher asked her to come back and just double check that it really is the instrument that she wanted. And you know, she tried a whole heap of other instruments, and seriously, some of the instruments she tried were $15,000, and she still, you know, just kept coming back to the Hoffmeister. So, you know, they are very good value. You know, obviously everyone is totally unique, and your instrument is your voice. So you want to find an instrument that kind of matches the way you want to sound. You know, often I find that there's even a slight similarity between the way people speak and the way their instrument sounds. It's very beautiful, and I'm always very honored, like I said, to be part of someone's journey. Alright, just putting the strings on. You have seen me do that dozens of times if you've watched my videos. I even show you exactly how to do it. I probably do it slightly different, and that's because I have put the strings onto thousands of instruments. I'm actually wondering if it could be tens of thousands. It's been a lot. I mean, I've been doing this for 38 years. So, I mean, that's a lot. I should do the maths one day, just out of interest. You know, how many how many violins did I string up? Like I said, I told my son that, you know, once he's done 100 fingerboards, he'll be getting good at it. But I think he may have close to done the pegs on close to 100 violins, and he's actually really good. He's very thorough. Now, what I'm going to do here with this violin, I will play some notes for you. But what I usually do is I usually hang the instrument up overnight and allow it to settle down with the strings, and then the next day I'll do the final adjustments. But I'll do a basic adjustment and just play it for you so you can hear how beautiful it is. Like I said, I designed the Hoffmeister to celebrate the beauty of German violin making. I know it's a little bit ironic that the instrument actually wasn't made in Germany, but if it was, it would probably cost about $15,000 because of the quality of the materials, the amount of time it takes in workmanship. Sound post is a little bit too long again. Thought I had my little magnifying thing. When I do up close work, I really like to use my magnifying glasses. I know I should probably do some eye exercises because I want my eyesight to be good into my 80s and 90s. I think I'll still be doing this in my 80s if, like, my dad's still making instruments. I talked to him. I might do a video with him at some point in the near future. I really love my job. I love hearing a violin for the first time. This isn't even played in yet, and it sounds amazing. Now, there is one thing that I still have to do that's really important, and that is to put in my label. I kind of make it look fairly easy putting in a label. It was pretty funny. I asked my son to do that once, and it looked so easy when I did it, and the poor guy, it took him a little while. I remember my first time putting in a sound post. It was just a nightmare. It took so long, and I'm not a patient person. That definitely is. If you want to learn patience, learn to put in a sound post or a label. Anyway, that's done. I'll stop raving now. I've popped that violin aside to, you know, rest overnight. This is it for me. I am done. I did a fair bit of work, as you saw. Those fingerboards were planed already that I'd done, but I polished some instruments, set up some instruments, had lunch, very important, and went for a nice walk on a beautiful day. And anyway, thanks for sharing my day with me. Hope things are going well for you. If you're a player, don't get frustrated. Don't practice too hard. I'm going to do a video on practice really soon. I've just found out a few things, a few ways that you can practice that are a lot more efficient. Yeah, just enjoy playing, make beautiful music, you know, dance through life. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Click the like button, it always helps me. Subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell so you find out when I do my next video and the one after, and there'll be lots more. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. Bye.